2026 is going to be a massively exciting time for Formula One. It's a reset moment, the next chapter of our team's story. So we've got a huge year ahead as Aston Martin Formula One team.
Today we're joined by Rob Bloom, one of the most thoughtful and progressive leaders in Formula One marketing.
On day one, we launched what we call the I Am programme. I of the individual, AM of Aston Martin. It's about access, it's about creating connections and community.
You've built a brand, but you've had to build a team as well from kind of scratch. How did you go through that process?
First requirement is that bring people into the team who are truly talented individuals.
Rob sits at the intersection of brand, performance and fandom, building a global brand inside one of the most demanding, high-pressured environments in sport.
Why would a fan choose Aston Martin F1 versus some of the other teams on the racetrack?
If you're interested in how elite brands are built, how culture scales under pressure, or what Formula One can teach the rest of business about clarity, substance and ambition, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Well, Rob, amazing to have you on the show again.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do this for many people, but the world of Formula One is so fast moving, and I know that your role and the whole organisation is moving so fast. It felt right to have you back on, particularly at this moment in Formula One. So how's 2026 going? I'm not going to ask you about how the car is, but how are things looming for the forthcoming season?
Well, 2026 is going to be a massively exciting time for Formula One. It's a reset moment. And I guess it's the next chapter of our team's story. So we've got a huge year ahead. Since we last spoke, we've expanded our commercial portfolio significantly. We've expanded our fan base significantly. And with that brings opportunity and new briefs to activate partners and engage fans in new and interesting ways.
Rob, I mean, gosh, first of all, amazing to have you back on. You said it's a reset moment. Now, for the uninitiated of Formula One, give us a little bit of an understanding. Was that actually, how significant does that mean? Or what does that mean?
It's probably the biggest regulation change in the history of the sport, which you can imagine the size of the challenge that brings from a technical perspective, but also the amount of excitement that comes. And when you've got a new brand in the sport like Aston Martin is, we're still only 5 years old as a brand. We are really leaning into 2026 and beyond as an opportunity to take the next step forward on the track, but just continue the momentum we have from a commercial and marketing point of view off the track as well.
So you're saying your regulatory shifts, does that mean effectively it's a sort of new cars, new engine types, new sort of everything just revitalized? Is that kind of the core of it?
It's a new car every year, but this time around, there's a new set of regulations that they have to design and build the car to. We become a works team as well, and that means that we have a Honda power unit in the car for the first time.
Right.
We've got Adrian Newey as our team principal and a guy that has designed cars that have won 20% of Formula One Grand Prix of all time. And there's a load of building blocks coming together with our wind tunnel, with the new campus coming on board. It's just a moment where a lot of things are coming together, but because Formula One is such a tough challenge, we are also managing our own expectation and our fans' expectation that these things do take time to come together.
Sounds like 5 years in the making.
Yeah, I mean, you remind me, we had Greg Levine on the show, who was involved in the setup of McLaren as a high-performance sports car brand, and he talks about creating the conditions for success. And my feeling is you're in the right place to create the conditions for success. We'll come back to today and the looming season, but I want to do a bit of a rewind, because when you arrived at Aston Martin, it wasn't Aston Martin, it was Racing Point F1. And so I'd love to hear a bit about the inception of the brand, that brand conversion or brand flip to Aston Martin, that process, the thinking that went behind it, the creation moment. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I guess the moment where Aston Martin rebranded the team, it wasn't about changing the name above the door. We were coming into a team that was 30 years old and then had 5 different iterations of its identity in that time. This was about a complete reset from the project point of view. It was about the substance, the infrastructure that was being put in place, the team growth, the drivers. Every part of the organization was going through a huge transformation. And that's when I came in. I'd spent 8 years at McLaren previously, and they came into Aston Martin with the brief of designing and building the Aston Martin brand through the lens of Formula One, and ultimately building an audience that brand speaks to and connect with. What a brief! What a magnificent challenge! But what it wasn't was a straightforward lift and shift of the Aston Martin brand into Formula One. We had to design a brand that had wider appeal, because we were speaking to a far greater audience than just those that are fortunate enough to be able to buy an Aston Martin road car. We're talking to an audience of global nature, a new audience coming into the sport, as well as a long-standing established Formula One community. And commercially, it was really important that we built scale for that audience, and that we created and designed something that felt different in the sport. When you have that kind of brief, it's so important, I think, that you grab it with both hands to do it differently, to carve out a unique identity for ourselves as a team, and to really make sure that we were outwardly facing and we understood what was going on in the world around us when we designed and launched the Aston Martin brand. And what I brought in as well, which I'd spent a lot of time at McLaren focusing on this, but I really wanted us to connect with fans. That's what I'm so passionate about. Fans are amazing people. They give so much. They give their time, they give their energy, they invest financially in following and supporting teams. We appreciate every single one of the fans that wears an Aston Martin t-shirt or follows us on social media, every single one. And I wanted to make sure that in the process of brand design, we created an identity and a brand that connected and really resonated with fans and gave them an opportunity to be part of this amazing team and amazing project. And that was really personally important to me, but commercially, that gave us scale, that gave us an ability to activate our brand, activate our partners, attract new partners. So it's all of the building blocks that came in place, as well as, by the way, being respectful to the brand that we were inheriting. As I say, a 30-year-old race team that had a tremendous amount of heart and had really punched above its weight over the last 30 years to achieve some amazing things on track. But with the new investment, the new tools, materials, processes, systems, through Lawrence Stroll, who has significantly invested in the project, we are now in a better place and position to challenge at the front of the grid. And that's the ultimate objective.
Yeah. I have no doubt it will happen. I'd never really thought about that. It's sort of obvious when you say it, but it's a weird juxtaposition between a brand and a consumer market that only a handful of people can aspire to, and tens, if not hundreds of millions of fans. It's an obvious point now you've made it. So in those early days, I guess there was, starting from that creation point, there must have been some big decisions that you had to make. What were some of the early decisions you made to the path to where we are now?
So we went through the process of the brand design, but then we needed to find some marketing initiatives from day one that we could launch to demonstrate substance. So communicating the vision of the project was really important from the outset. It was always a multi-year project, and we had to communicate the building blocks that we were putting in place through time in order to get to our winning ambition. We had to design a fan engagement program that from day one gave opportunities for fans to get involved, be part of this team, because that's what we were hearing out there in the world that they really wanted. We had to develop an ESG program that we launched on day one called Make a Mark, that was a program of substance and real impact in society from a sustainability, inclusion, community perspective. And all of these had to happen immediately, not just a promise, but real action and substance. And the insight that we had in what was going on in the world around us and what fans wanted and what other brands coming into sports wanted, they were very important to inform us. They were really important for me to then take the strategy internally and let the business know this is what we want to do and this is why we want to do it. And then we were accountable as well from a measurement perspective from day one. And as I say, 5 years in, I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to see it through for 4 or 5 years, where, as we know in marketing, you don't always get the chance to stick with the project. It had to be long-term, it had to be substance, and there had to be accountability.
Today's program is brought to you by two fantastic organizations. First up is Studio Space, a leading on-demand marketing agency platform. Studio Space gives marketers complete control over their projects, from matching the right agency to your brief, to managing contracts and invoicing, and even tracking all of your spend data all in the one place. They take care of everything and it's totally hassle-free. They even guarantee the work. So check out Studio Space today. Our second sponsor is the Marketing Skills Trust, a charity with a mission to make marketing a better place for everyone. They provide grants to help create a more equitable industry and support initiatives that really do drive diversity, inclusion, and create opportunity. The Trust has been instrumental in leveling up the marketing skills across the board. And do take a look at their website for more information. Now, let's get on with the show.
Rob, I absolutely love the thought of putting your fans front and center of everything you do. I mean, that really is an exciting, and in many regards, the holy grail of us as marketers and where we come from. That's our craft, to put the customer, the fan first. I just wonder if you could maybe elaborate a little bit for me on maybe one or two of the activations that you do that really make, put the fans at the center of the experience and make them feel really a part of it and special.
Yeah, on day one, we launched what we call the I Am program.
Yep.
I of the individual, AM of Aston Martin. And that's all about providing opportunities from an experience point of view. It's about access. It's about creating connections and community. And so we were really careful to build something that wasn't just about fan engagement, because we'd seen that established in sport over the last 10 years or so, in a really good way as well. Fans are now starting to be engaged. But when you listen to the insight, they're saying, I want to be seen, I want to be heard, I want to be involved, I want in. I don't just want to be recognized, I want to be part of this story and part of this equation. So for example, in the I Am program, last year we launched what we call the I Am Drops initiative, audaciously stolen from streetwear retail culture. That's all about rarity, exclusive, limited edition merch. It's about collaborations outside of category. So we did things with the Rolling Stones. We did things with DJ Dom Dollar. We did things with Santan Dave. We did things with Toy Story. And,
Toy Story?
Oh, it was amazing.
What?
One absolute, it writes itself. Aston Martin F1 meets Toy Story. But when you go out there with a suite of limited edition Toy Story Aston Martin hoodies,
that's cool.
and give the fans access to get hold of them for free, you just got to be involved in the I Am program. And that I think just takes it on to the next level. And we know that F1 fans, some will go down to Silverstone to watch the race. Others, their expression of their fandom might be wearing an Aston Martin Toy Story hoodie.
Sure.
And we want to provide more opportunities for fans to get involved in the sport in that way.
So can you give us a little bit of an inside scoop as to some of the things that fans can expect from the I Am program in 2026?
I'm comfortable to say there'll be more collaborations. We've got some really exciting brand collaborations in the pipeline.
Amazing.
And the reason is it's just simply to do things differently in this sport, you have to think differently. And that means bringing in people into the organisation who can think differently, stealing things from outside of sports marketing, and then just coupling with our brand with unexpected collaborations like Toy Story, and then just watching the magic unfold from there.
Brilliant. Exciting.
I love that. I think two thoughts. One is that you have perhaps one of the most interesting exciting jobs going. And the other is you've built a brand, but you've had to build a team as well from kind of scratch. And I know team is very important to you. So how did you go through that process? And I suppose, what are your non-negotiables for people you want to have in your team?
Do you know, the thing that I really appreciate is world-class talent. And when you encounter world-class talent, it is exciting, it stops you in your tracks, and it just makes you realize what it could be like. And when you bring in people with genuine, raw, world-class talent, it is game-changing. And so the first requirement is that we bring people into the team who are truly talented individuals. We can then harness that talent. We can open doors for them. We can provide platforms to express themselves. I can try and break down barriers to enable them to flourish and grow and be even better. But I think raw talent is so special. And when you see raw talent in the theatre or in whatever capacity, world class is another level. And those are the sort of people we want in our organisation. But it has to be in addition to desire, determination, the ability to take on feedback, the desire to grow, to be better. No one in the world is at their absolute best. You can be better, but you have to have the right mindset and attitude and desire to grow and be better. And we exist in the growth organisation in Formula One. So they have to bring that as well. And then I think the final thing that's so important to us is that people are appreciative of this unbelievable opportunity of working in elite, high-performance environments like Formula One. It's a privilege. I've been in the sport for 15 years and I appreciate it every single day, working in that environment. But you also have to understand the context of the environment. At any point, you can be asked to jump on a plane and go over to anywhere in the world to do something because the opportunity arises. We're looking for people who are saying, put me on the plane because there's an opportunity there and I want to grab it with both hands before anyone else gets anywhere near that. That's the caliber of individual we want in our team. And then my job is to make sure that they have a clear strategy, and I galvanize that group behind a vision, and that they communicate and collaborate and all the things that makes that team the brilliant team that it is.
Amazing. There was such a strong look in your eye when you talked those words, world-class talent. And that growth mindset, I guess there's always another thousandth of a second. So that has to live all the way through the organisation. How do you know on an interview process or in meeting somebody? How do you know?
I think there's nothing better than demonstrating work. So, we'll ask people, tell us about what you've done. Even if they're coming straight out of college or university, they should be able to demonstrate examples of work where they've disrupted, they've thought differently, they've executed brilliantly. I don't think Formula One needs a load more people from a Formula One background. I think it's got a lot of those, and people will always move around F1 teams. I'm case in point for that. But if someone can demonstrate to me that they've expressed themselves and they've done something that's just thinking differently and beautifully executed with precision, with clarity of thought, then just show us what you can do. And then instinct. You've got to have, I think, when you're hiring people, you've got to have good instinct as to, I can see the talents and I can see how they're going to flourish in this organisation.
Rob, when I think about Formula One, certainly in the early days and iterations, it was a very exclusive kind of place to be. And I imagine that's not just necessarily certainly amongst the fan base, but certainly people who worked in and around the industry too. I'm sure that's changed a lot, tremendously, in fact. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that change towards inclusivity to kind of spark the imagination of those who may have never thought about working in Formula One before.
Good question. On day one, we wrote a bit of language as a deliberate paradox about designing the most inclusive, exclusive brands in world sport. What's interesting about that is everyone always picks up on the inclusivity angle, but those words have 50-50 weighting. So we still carry through the luxury tropes of Aston Martin, and we still lean into the aspirational nature of the Aston Martin brand, because A, that's good for the brand holistically, but B, we also know that there is a real appeal of a global audience You know, if you talk to people in China or the States, younger audiences, older audiences, there is an appeal of that aspirational nature of our brand. So we retain that, but that inclusivity angle is so important in the world today. And I think for us, that's about three pillars. That's about fan engagement and programs like I Am to give people the opportunity to come in and be involved and express their fandom. That's about a real program of substance with ESG and holding ourselves accountable to that program as well. And that's also about recruitment and giving people the opportunity to come into our team that maybe don't look like me. And that's also really important that we continue to look outside of the traditional F1 audience and employee base, and start to bring in more diversity of thought, diverse backgrounds. And again, when you start to bring in talent and desire and appetite and also some diverse thinking into the equation, it's just magical. And a lot of our campaigns of late, you know, some of the brilliant work that's happening behind the scenes right now, you know, that's the matrix of team who have that thought process.
Rob, I want to come on to strategy, the underpinnings of Aston Martin F1. But before I do that, clearly as the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, I'd love to understand a little bit more about marketing's remit across the organization, and the perceived value that marketing brings to the Aston Martin F1 brand and team.
Yeah, it's a good question. Do you know about 75 to 80% of our entire commercial income comes from our commercial partners, which is probably over-indexing from anything you'll see in other sports. It's possibly even over-indexing on the Formula One grid itself. Wow. And there is an appreciation from the race team side of our business that fundamentally we, as commercial and marketing, bring in revenue to enable us to go racing. And for me, the ability to grow a fan base and to grow the brand and to grow our commercial portfolio requires support from the race team, and that there's that fundamental understanding, and it's a mutual understanding across our commercial, marketing, race team side of the business of how our business operates, and also from a CMO point of view. We have in marketing the brand that we need to manage and develop and grow value into. Great thing about that is it gives me the opportunity to poke my nose in wherever across the business it seems relevant, because everything that we do as Aston Martin is our identity. What the car looks like, what our kit looks like, how we show up trackside, how we engage our guests. And I think what's also really important is when you look at the matrix and the makeup of that commercial portfolio, generalizing, it tends to be either technology partners or consumer brands, because the sport has that appeal. It's the best tech showcase platform you could ever imagine. We exist as a working prototype. We exist at the pinnacle of technology. What a brilliant platform to bring your business in and demonstrate as a case study how you've helped our car go faster. So that means we need access into the race team environment. We need to be able to tour guests around. We need to be able to embed our technology partners within the race team. But then on the consumer side, consumer brands want scale. They want to be able to access large audiences. They want to be able to connect. They want to be able to build programs that engage those consumer brands. And again, you need the whole business behind that. It can't be a marketing operating in silo. And I think what's really effective with Aston Martin project right now is the whole business understands the role of marketing, commercial, and how the whole system and matrix works together.
You know, you talk about the sort of marketing in a very distinct way, in that you talked about marketing, commercial, and partnerships, almost one of the same sort of entity in that sense. And I think one of the faults of our industry is the notion that actually we get siloed into a box and a fairly small one at that. And yet it feels like this is a great example here of actually being able to be expansive, being able to have your being empowered to be able to actually get into different area, places and spaces that you need to in order for marketing to really prove its value. I just love that thinking.
I'm a big fan of clean thinking. And as a leadership group, our responsibility is to make sure that we can package up what we're here for from an organization point of view in a way that is very simple, very clear. The objectives are very straightforward. And so whether you're marketing partnerships in the new business team, communications, you are all operating under the same goal of ultimately revenue, brand, fans. That when you can package it up in a way that's really clean, the objectives are really clear, then you're all on the same page. So we in marketing share exactly the same ultimate objective as our colleagues in partnerships or commercial. What's so important for me is that I could ask one of my team members at any point in time, what is it that you're doing that ultimately brings us enables us to hit the ultimate objective of our organization? And we shouldn't be more than one step removed at any point from that. That just requires clarity of thinking. It also gives us some guardrails on which to operate, because we could do so many things as Aston Martin, go into so many different places. But if you can't explain why we're doing this action and how it ultimately, one step removed, helps us to achieving our goal, you'd probably spend our time doing something different.
It's a cliche, isn't it, that the person sweeping the floor when the man's trying to go to the moon, he would say spontaneously, "I'm helping man to go to the moon." But there it is in living being. So that's amazing. I'm also reminded of, you said, "Put me on that plane. I want to get on that plane," or words to that effect. And so I want to talk a bit about it must be an absolutely relentless schedule. So how does the workflow flow when you get into the midst of the season?
Mark, it's probably worse than you think. and by that, I mean, yes, we've talked a lot about the Aston Martin F1 brand. But the nature of sports marketing is such that we now have in-house capability to market our partners, our commercial portfolio. We have a commercial portfolio that has a market cap of around $3 trillion. There are some serious brands that are sponsors of our team. And we are responsible for creating the strategic platform and much of the content and the experiences and the activation programs that enable those partners to receive value from the team. So we have 24 races. We have an Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team brand, and we have a suite of commercial partners required to activate. You put all of that into the matrix. What is incredibly important is that we are galvanized behind a single vision. We've got the right people in place, and the strategy is super clear. At that point, it's an operating framework for people to go out and express themselves in their different ways. The worst thing I could do as a CMO is try and be too controlling over every single part of our activation or output. It's about a clear framework under which to operate and express themselves.
Rob, it's really interesting you talk about control, because I know you have a partnership with TikTok where, to some extent you're not always in control. So how do you balance that? Tell us a bit about the TikTok thing, but also how do you strike that balance?
Yeah, TikTok was one of the first partnerships that we announced right back in 2021, and is now going into its fifth year of partnership. Amazing partnership that brings together two unexpected brands in Aston Martin Formula One and TikTok. We were a pioneer in giving opportunities for creators to work in Formula One. Very proud of that as well, because it has significantly enhanced since 2021. The way that we look at creator engagement very much aligns to how I look at bringing people into the team. So first and foremost, let's find the most talented people out there, people who can express themselves in really new and interesting ways. And then let's hold ourselves accountable to giving them a brief that is very clear in terms of what we need out of this from a brand point of view. At that point, we take a step back. So the last thing we want to do is infringe on their creativity by dictating how that comes to life. That's not why we engaged the creator community. We did it because they can tell our story and package our story up in really new and interesting ways that we're not thinking about. And guess what? A lot of people are consuming our brand through the lens of creators. That's how they've come to know and experience Aston Martin. That's how they're building an opinion of Aston Martin Formula One team. So we have a huge program of creator engagement that's global. But we did something last year that was interesting when we announced and activated what was called the Creator Collective. So that was 5 individual creators who everyone had the opportunity to apply for it. Then we selected 5 creators. Just so happened to all be female. It was never designed to all be female creators. They were the best 5 people. So we gave the best 5 people the best opportunity. They had all sorts of backgrounds, from cooking, maths, Chelsea, who her passion is about maths and telling those stories. You let Chelsea loose in mission control and allow her to tell a story of data and insight and analytics in Formula One. She did an amazing job for us last year of packaging that up in a really relatable and accessible way. It doesn't take away from the ability and capability of my team in storytelling. It's another layer in the matrix. And I think it's really impactful. And what's so important is that we're not just engaging creators to tell our story, but we're listening to the stories that creators tell as well, because they are packed full of insights and little gems that we can take and apply them to our own marketing programs.
I'm really intrigued as you were talking to sort of the TikTok moments and then how creators activate and get you to new audiences that may not have otherwise discovered the team. It really made me think about fan dynamics and the entry points to actually becoming a fan of Aston Martin F1 versus some of the other teams on the racetrack. And then I started thinking about, like, when you think about these sort of big teams, my mind immediately went to football. And I kind of went, well, the reason why you typically become a football fan of a particular team is probably because, your peer group did so, or your family did so, and so on and so forth. And what you described there was something slightly different about when someone's coming in for the first time and understanding. And I just wonder, what's the insight in and around why would a fan choose Aston Martin F1 versus some of the other teams on the racetrack? I mean, have you got any insight into how that all happens?
Do you know, we did a campaign last year around the British Grand Prix. And let me just pause at that. The expected thing that Aston Martin F1 team does around the British Grand Prix is turn up with Union Jacks, and we lean into the Britishness and the Royal Warrant and all of the things that Aston Martin should be doing around the British Grand Prix. Instead, we had a session in TikTok's office where we spent hours digging into current fan trends and strategically spoke about a campaign called Fan Made. And Fan Made was born out of genuine insight as to fan behaviors within platform on TikTok. And we specifically dug into 2 behaviors, one of which was around matcha culture and how that's starting to blend with F1. And the other was around nail gels and nail polish, and the fact that fans were creating their own nail gels and nail polish to try and get the exact match of their favourite teams. So we said, why don't we have a British Grand Prix campaign that says to fans, we see you, we hear you, we love what you're doing, and watch us get involved, amplify, bring it into real world scenarios. And so we set up a matcha pop-up in Covent Garden that we called Aston Matcha. And we gave fans, our IM members, the community that we're building, the opportunity to come in, have a free matcha on us, have a photo next to an F1 car, take a seat, enjoy an Aston Martin experience on us. And then we worked with an independent company to create an exact match nail gel that we gave out there to the world. This is the British Grand Prix campaign for Aston Martin Formula One team. It was brave and bold to base our entire British Grand Prix campaign on an insight like that. And there was a moment once we'd activated this campaign where it was in the evening, and on our marketing group Teams chat, you just started to see team members dropping in links to TikToks. And the fan-generated content, unprompted, particularly of younger females who are perhaps newer into the sport, and the words they're using, they're saying, I can't believe, finally, a team sees us, hears us, gets us, and is activating and creating moments and programs that truly engages us as a fan base. It was emotional around the team because it was a bit of a bold move, but it just showed that there are people in the team and there's a genuine appetite to engage a really broad F1 fan base and give everybody the opportunity to get involved in our sport. And I think it's those sort of initiatives now that are influencing fandom. And you're right, I'm a Birmingham City fan because of my dad. It's his fault. It's not just that now in F1. There are other influences that people are choosing their teams. And then again, why is that important to us? That builds scale, that builds community, that gives us an opportunity to continue to promote and market our brand and our partners, and there's a commercial underpinning to it. But the way in which we go about activating it was genuine desire to give fans the opportunity to be seen, heard, and involved in our sport.
Ooh, hairs on the back of your neck. That's good. That's really good. I don't know if it's an elephant in the room question, but I always felt that the job of marketing was sort of to go ahead of the organisation, pull the organisation in a direction. And I think there's a little bit of that going on with Aston Martin because you're absolutely killing it out there with partners and at a marketing and a brand level, but the results are yet to come. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts about how you bridge that gap and how you convince sponsors and fans that it's coming. Because success is going to be important at some point in time, and success meaning you 100%. Have ambitions to win. Yep. So how do you bridge the gap?
I think commercial brands are coming to us because of the brand of Aston Martin, first and foremost. It's a 100-year-old iconic classic brand that has that one truth and quality to it, which is its ability to continue to reinvent and create new and be modern and move with the times. You cannot be a 100-year-old classic brand unless you have those behaviours at your core. So there are so many magical things about the Aston Martin brand that we give other commercial partners the opportunity to now be part of and attach themselves to. First and foremost, that's so important to us. But I think what's really appealing to brands on both the technology and the consumer lifestyle side is the opportunity to be part of this project. So, brands like CoreWeave, who operate in the AI space, they are genuinely helping us to make the car go faster. And to be able to tell that story is huge. Aramco, our title partner, they bring the fuel, they put the fuel in the car that will have a performance impact as well as a sustainability story to it as well. I could go through our entire partner portfolio and they're bringing something. They're bringing something with a purpose to it. That's a really powerful story in our world. And I think people are really excited by our project and the opportunity to be involved and contribute. And that's our ethos. We have a say yes philosophy in commercial and marketing. We want to do things. We want to do it differently. We want to activate and tell stories around our partners. And I think almost the paradox of this exclusive Aston Martin brand, but with a team of people who are saying, come in, be part of this story. And we've built in-house capability. It's called AMR Creative Studio, which has a frightening level of talent in it to create strategic marketing platforms to tell those stories.
It sounds brilliant, especially the thought that each of your partners have a role to play in the success of what it's going to mean for the future of the brand. One of the core strands that I think you've talked to throughout this episode is ESG and actually doing stuff in an environmentally sustained way. Can you talk a little bit about how core and central that whole ESG element is to what you're doing at Aston Martin F1?
I mean, again, we have been guilty in sport and society of making promises that perhaps we don't back up. So first and foremost, before we went out and told the world about Make a Mark, our ESG program, we made sure that it was a real program of substance. The process of designing that was very similar to how you go about designing business and brand strategy. So what's the strategy? What are the pillars? What's the program of activation look like? What are the objectives? What are the KPIs, and how are we holding ourselves accountable to delivering on each of those different objectives? That's the starting point of our ESG program. We then create a platform that gives our commercial partners the opportunity to come in and be part of. And when I look around our partner portfolio, the genuine desire to make an impact and a real impact in the world, in their own businesses, but also through their F1 partnerships, is really inspirational. And we are here to help create platforms and programs that our partners can get involved in, amplify, and that of course extends the reach. Perhaps we've got more investment in the program with our commercial partners backing, and we've done some really amazing things from STEM to sustainability in the ESG program. We've also recognised a little bit like the creator conversation, where guess what, we don't know everything. We're Aston Martin F1 team. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are experts in every single facet of ESG, and it's important that we brought some charity partners on board to help us. They're a third eye. They're helping us to activate programs. So organizations like the Alito Foundation, who are all about giving underrepresented communities the opportunity to flourish in leadership roles. Racing Pride, which is all about the LGBT community and making sure they're represented in motorsport. These charity partners are incredibly important. It's the third eye, and again, they just keep us honest in that program.
Absolutely love that.
Changing lives. Just a bit about you as leader, Rob. So we talked a bit about the team that you've built, your standards, your principles, your beliefs, and so on. I guess how are you still working on yourself as a leader? How are you growing and evolving, even in these times?
I think, as a general point, the team that you lead is a reflection of the leader. And indeed, the actions of the team will be a reflection on a leader too. I think leaders should have an acute self-awareness of their DNA, their mindset, their makeup, based on both the nature and nurture perspective. I'm very aware from a personality and my beliefs and my mindset, I guess the impact of my upbringing and shaping me as to the person that I am. I'm also acutely aware of what's called the is-ought gap, how the world is, and in my mind at least, how the world ought to be. The standards, the opportunity, the level that you could reach if you go that one step further. I've definitely passed that on to the team in a really positive way, because there can be negative associations to that. Exacting standards can be celebrated, but can also be a negative force in the team if you don't manage it correctly. My team are encouraged. They're given the platform, the freedom, the opportunity to express themselves. They know that they can get it wrong. And guess what? We all get it wrong from time to time. As long as we learn, we continue to grow, evolve. But going that one step further is the difference that really makes Aston Martin Aston Martin. That's what makes Formula One the pinnacle of motorsport. And good isn't really good enough. We're looking for brilliant. That's the standard at which we hold ourselves accountable to across our entire organisation, very much so in marketing. Equally, two things. One, that is ought gap can be really effective in a work context, but you have to be very careful from a personal context. I think the superpower of exposing life's snag list is not always something which you'd want to take into your everyday life. And I think that probably is my superpower, to be able to see how things could be better. And as I say, positively to pass on that mindset to the team, I think is really great. Being careful not to do it too much in the personal world is also really important. But I just want to make the point that everyone can make mistakes, and there is a large percentage of me which is still very open to learning. And I will be the first person to say to the team or to the business, I think I might have got that wrong. I think your way is a better way to go. Let's do that one. That's really important as well. It just comes down to that desire to just achieve what people have the potential to achieve, particularly if you couple it with that point earlier around talent and giving people the platform to express themselves. As I say, that's where the magic happens. It's a really exciting, dynamic place to work if you can get that culture right.
Rob, you hold the business, the brand, the team to an extraordinarily high standard, rightly so. And I'm sure, as you just called out, that the team is a reflection on the leader. And therefore, are you really hard on yourself?
I probably was before I started doing as much work on myself as I have done. Taking responsibility for things that aren't perhaps my responsibility to take, for example. So I think it's about self-awareness, being awake to the world around you, recognizing that the world is chaos, and perfection's just not going to happen. But as long as you've got the ability to observe, interpret, understand, and just take a pause moment, both on an individual basis and on a team basis, and just be fair and reasonable on both myself and also on the team and the work that we do, that's where you get balance in a really positive way. But I've been through an awful lot of self-work, and I would encourage anybody who's thinking of going down that path to absolutely pursue it. It's amazing when you can better understand yourself, how you're wired. It's probably the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life as well.
Massively appreciate your transparency around that. And in general, this interview has been inspirational. I'm just it's come to the end. It's our closing question. Sadly, time zips by. I'm going to go back to the thing you said about talent, because I think that's really a sort of a clinching point of this interview. As encouragement to people who are thinking about a career, it's just a scratch of an idea in their head. How do they best position themselves, their candidacy to be credible to join the world of Formula One?
Yeah, it's like I said, Formula One's got a load of brilliant Formula One people in it. What we're really looking to do, and what we were pioneering 5 years ago in doing, is looking outside of the business. Perhaps people in other sports, but a lot of my recruitment was agency or luxury brand, consumer brands, people who have completely different experiences to the world of Formula One. And I guess what we're looking for is people that can demonstrate impact, real impact and purpose, clarity of thought, things that they've brought to the table in their own world that just rub against category a little bit. And I really don't care what industry they've done that in. My career has gone in all sorts of places, from starting out as a snooker player to working in charity sector, to insurance, to Formula One. It's not about the path to get to F1. It's about the impact that you're making along the journey. And then look, we're an organisation that needs brilliant people, and we put opportunities out there into the world, and it's just a case of getting your name in the frame. And then when the opportunity presents itself, grabbing it. You will have one opportunity to come in and interview to work in a space like Formula One. Grab it.
Love it. Rob, been an absolute pleasure. So glad we had you back on again. Thanks for sharing your insights and perspectives. It's been amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rob.
Cheers.